I do definitely think that feminism is misunderstood. To me, it's about men and women being perceived as equal. The thing is, there's so many different aspects of feminism that it's kind of difficult to unpack into one sentence. And at different stages of your life, it means obviously different things. It's in the workplace, at home, just socially. I think that as you grow into a young woman, it's not wanting to be sexualized when you're walking down the street, but when you're a young girl, it's maybe feeling like you want to do the same things that young boys do. Having equal opportunities to go and do things like playing football or that seems like such a silly example, but I remember when I was young and I was in a football, I used to go and play football after school, and the women's team, or the girls' team, we had a different coach like every week, whereas the boys' team was taken a lot more seriously. And, why is that? Why isn't the same amount of money being poured into like women's football as it is to men's? And now I do think that things are changing. But it's just about feeling like men and women are given equal opportunities to achieve like success in their life. And of course that's different at different stages in different contexts. But I do think it's misunderstood because a lot of young men think that it's somehow that women want to literally completely, dominate, and they want men to feel terrible about themselves. And that's just not what it is. And it feels ignorant to me when young men say this, especially people like Andrew Tate that capitalize off of that. I mean, he just wants to make money, people like that. And I don't take what they say seriously. But then a lot of young boys, especially like, around 14, 15, when you're kind of more impressionable, you do start to hear these kind of subconscious or, these messages from people like that, the red pill YouTubers, as we've been saying, and take it in. And then of course that makes you blame feminism for everything and kind of misunderstand it.
Yeah, I think like these young boys and these young men, they do feel like a bit disillusioned with society anyway, a bit like they're outcasts and they're not fitting in. And then these men, these influencers, these red pill guys, they capitalize on that, like you said. So I think if there was more communication to understand these young men and these boys first, instead of like ridiculing them for having questions and like thinking certain things, I think it would go a long way. Because like in society now, it's almost, if you don't think a certain way, people are like shocked, and it's like, oh my God, how could you even think that? And no one wants to have that conversation. But the best way to combat stuff like that is to actually have the conversation, understand where they're coming from, and then change their mind by giving like rational arguments and stuff. Even if someone was like being Islamophobic or racist to us, I wouldn't just like ridicule them and say, what are you talking about? I'd have a conversation and say, no, like this is my perspective on it. And hopefully if they're not just a malicious person, if they don't have bad intent, they'll realize that. And I don't think a lot of these boys are, these people who are being like almost brainwashed by these red pill content creators. They're just young men looking for somewhere to fit in and for the world to understand them. And unfortunately, these like predators, that's what they are. These people like Fresh and Fit and stuff capitalize on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's in some ways it feels a bit frustrating because I want to say to like lots of young men that feel this way, disillusioned, like, we're on the same team almost. Young men that feel, for example, like loneliness was a big thing, this like epidemic of young people feeling lonely. And it's not just young men that feel lonely, it's young women too, but like young men not feeling like they can express their emotions. That's a product, that's not something that like feminists want. Feminists don't want men to be like repressed emotionally. That doesn't benefit anyone, And so these people like Fresh and Fit or Andrew Tate that kind of say your problems are because of feminists and they're rising up and they don't, whatever they say, it's not based in reality. Young women do not want young men to be facing these problems of loneliness, of like repressed emotion. It doesn't serve anyone, is what I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. And another issue I have with that narrative that these red pill YouTubers and, these figures like Andrew Tate, promote, is that they treat feminism as a monolithic term. It's like, and they generalize and oversimplify a lot. They may have seen issues in their culture and their upbringing where, they may have seen some aspects in feminism that, we need a discussion about, rather than demonizing the women, which is, you said, is the wrong approach, right? To conversation, yes, you can discuss that, but instead you demonize the word, right? The word and the whole, basically, you polarize the both men and women further. And instead of understanding what feminism truly is, like, for example, you look at Afghanistan, right? 4.3 million girls are out of school. So for anyone to say that feminism isn't needed and we shouldn't, there's no longer need to empower women and speak for their equal rights, right? You must be out of your mind. There are many societies and many places where women can't work, they don't have access to education, they don't have any job prospects. It's like, we can't ignore that. We can't just look at the feminine, the little sample he might be collecting, and maybe they are right in their criticism. But again, it's how they go about, number one, demonizing women, and number two, how oversimplify they simplify the problem. They oversimplify the problem, and which, is only more damaging.
Yeah, I mean, to me as well, what an uncompassionate take to say that, because we don't need feminism in the UK, or women and men are seen as equal in the US, even though, I don't believe necessarily that. But to then say, well, we don't need feminism at all, as you say, there's so many places where women and men are not equal. And I don't even want to say it's just about women, because I do understand that there's problems that men face as well. I just think gender equally, across the board, there's places where men and women need help, and to say well, it's all fixed in this country, so therefore we don't need it anymore. To me, it just, it doesn't feel like a compassionate take at all.
Yeah, I mean, the same logic, it does not make sense in any kind of human rights policies, because if let's say your country managed to, let's say, achieve a lot of equality in terms of financial equality. We at a good level now, we don't need it anymore. What? It doesn't make any sense. No, we have to maintain it. Yes, if the pay gap and the women rights are a lot more in the Western societies now, you can't just say, there's no longer need for feminism.
I do think there's always a need for feminism. I don't know if we'll ever get to a point where it's completely unnecessary.
Yeah, I think all relationships is just, you need to put an effort in always for it to be maintained at a healthy level. And this is just the relationship, it's dynamics between men, women, men, the whole world. So I think that is fair. But do you think it could be possible to have a situation, a point in time where we are just completely equal as men and women? There's no rights that men have that women don't have. There's no fear that women need to have in society.
I mean, of course I hope so. But I don't know. I don't see how at the moment, but of course, I do think that I want us to eventually get to a place, but I just think that there's lots of complicated factors that go into it. It's patriarchy doesn't seem to be it's still very much present right now, even people like Andrew Tate, who's saying, all this stuff. I mean, he's being charged with sex trafficking, assault. And I think, how can we take this person seriously when he's saying that there's this myth of patriarchy and all this, when this is the very thing he's upholding. So I don't know. It's hard for me to say, okay, yeah, one day we'll get to a point where men and women will be equal. I do think we need to just be having more conversations about it, and less on the phone scrolling through TikTok.
Yeah.
I saw that the government are thinking about banning phones for under 16, so like banning the sale of smartphones. I don't know what you guys think about that, but I think it would be a good starting point. It's a bit controversial, I guess, an idea, but
that is interesting, because how do you implement that? Or if like a parent buys someone a phone and then gives it to them, do the police arrest 15-year-olds with phones on the street? Like,
I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I'm not sure that's
work?
going to happen. But I do think, like, I don't know. I mean, there's a reason why all of these like tech billionaires don't let their kids have smartphones.
Yeah.
Who was it that invented the iPhone? Tim Cook?
Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs. Yeah. Well, they all say like they don't let their children like have iPhones because they know like it's so addictive, and like the person that invented the refresh button on Twitter like came out and said he regretted it.
Yeah, and the guy who made the unlimited scroll, you know how you can keep scrolling forever. You used to have to press next page, but now on stuff you can just scroll forever. The guy who made that is like, sorry guys.
Even the 4chan guys, they regretted
really
a lot of things.
I think if I had kids I wouldn't let them on social media, but I feel like a phone, just how unsafe everything is at the moment, like at least some sort of brick phone or something.
I would give them brick phone.
Yeah, well, they did specify this would be smartphones, so I think brick phones are okay, but no like
bring
social
them back.
Media. Yeah,
we need to make brick phones cool again.
100%. I like that. I like that tagline. What I wanted to ask also was, what is toxic masculinity?
That's a good question. I don't feel like I'm the right person to answer that. But I guess toxic masculinity to me is, it's kind of what we've been talking about, isn't it? It's like people that are these like alpha male. They think that like men need to be no emotion. They need to be they're like the top the top people over women, that women are subordinate. There's lots of things that go into toxic masculinity, I think. I feel like you're probably better placed to tell me what you think.
Wally, would you like to give us a take? If you enjoyed this segment, please make sure to like and subscribe. Also, the link to the full podcast is in our description. And finally, I wanted to say that please make sure to follow and download the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts so we can bring you more amazing content. Thank you so much for listening.